Great. All right. So we are recording and we're all set. Many times I actually forget to record and I remember just, 10 minutes later. So this time, thank you, Myra, for reminding me. Today, we're going to talk about freedom. We're going to talk about your ability to say, wow, I'm finally free to say whatever I want to say whenever I want to say it. In fact, if I were going to change the title of this webinar, I would change it to, I'm finally free to say what I want to say and be who I want to be, right? Because this really is about you feeling and being free enough to be the kind of person that you're meant to be all that you can be, to be all that you're called to be. This is about you being free enough to make the career choices and the relationship choices that you want to make without feeling limited by your speech. So I know that many of you out there who are watching this now or listening to this, you have felt limited and trapped by your speech, right? I've heard some people say that they feel like they are literally trapped in their own head, in their own mind. It's like the real you can't get out because, for example, you're sitting in a meeting and you're at work and you want to say something, but you feel like you can't because you might get stuck. It might not come out, or you might start blocking or stuttering or stammering or whatever. So you don't say something, even though you might have a brilliant idea. I've talked to so many people like that. I've been like that. You may want to choose a particular career field. Maybe you want to go into this career field, but then you stop and think, well, wait a minute, that's going to require more speaking. It's going to require me to speak a lot and not sure if I'm going to be able to do that. So then you choose another career field. This can impact, right? This stuttering or fast speaking or fear of public speaking can impact your personality. It can literally alter your personality. Now, what do I mean by this? What I mean is that there are people who really are outgoing, really are very confident people. But what happens is, because of the limitation of their speech, instead of going out and meeting people and talking to people and speaking up and speaking out, they quiet themselves down. They don't go introduce themselves. They stay away from activities and situations and experience where they have to introduce themselves or speak up or speak out. So it literally begins to change their personality. There are people who are actually very confident, but because of speech, their confidence kind of shrinks down, right? And so they're not as self-confident when it comes to speaking, which then impacts other areas of their life. When you're not able to say what you want to say when you want to say it, it can also impact your self-esteem. That is how you feel about yourself. There are many people out there watching this who beat themselves up, right? Because I did it again. I wasn't able to say, this is embarrassing. Why can't I speak like this person? Why can't I say what I want to say? Why do I have to struggle? And so it begins to wear away on your self-esteem. That's how you feel about yourself. Not everyone, right? Not everyone, but for some people, it does impact your self-esteem, your self-confidence, your self-esteem, your self-image, how you actually see yourself. So many people see themselves as a stutterer or as a person who speaks really fast and people look at them strange. They can't understand what you're saying. So you see yourself in this way. And what does all this do? What this does is it limits your opportunities. It limits your capability. It limits your ability to do the things that you're called to do. So what I want to challenge you to do is to listen to this session today, and I want you to think about just 1, 2, or possibly 3 things that you're going to take away from this session. 1, 2, or 3 things that you're going to take and you're going to take action on, something that resonates with you. It could be anything that I say. And if it resonates with you, then you say, aha, and you write it down. I was at a retreat, like I just mentioned, a 4-day retreat, and lots of things were said. We learned lots of great stuff. There's a few things that I wrote down that I kind of look at every single day. It resonated with me, and I can see already that it's making a huge impact on my life and on my business. And these are things that I knew before, but I'm more ready for it now. Same thing with you. A lot of the things that you hear me say, you may have heard me say before, you may already know, but you might be ready for it now. So we're talking about you getting to the place where you can feel free to say whatever you want to say, whenever you want to say it, where you can feel free to be the person that you're called to be, that you're meant to be. Remember, when your speech is limiting you, you are limiting not only your own life, but you're limiting the lives of those around you. So that is, you're not making the impact on your family, on your friends, on your community, and on the world. We live in a global economy, right? So that means that it's very, very easy for you to reach out and touch people on the other side of the world. I know from personal experience. So you literally have the ability to impact people around the world. And there's probably something that you're called to do to help someone. And because of the limitation of your speech, that person is not being impacted. They're not being affected in the way that they could be by you, right? So you have a responsibility, you have a calling to yourself to be all that you're capable of being, which includes your speech. You have a responsibility to your family, to your friends, and to the greater community. What if decades ago I decided, well, I struggle with speech, so I'm just going to do this. You know what, I'm not really going to try to fix my speech. I'm just going to stay over here and work on computers, right? Nothing wrong with working on computers, but if you're capable of doing that and something else, but the limitation is your speech, then you better get working on your speech. Now, here's the good news. Many of you may have been living with the notion that you are stuck with this thing. You're stuck speaking fast. You're stuck with a fear of public speaking. You're stuck with stuttering or stammering or mumbling or whatever it is. It really doesn't matter. The solution's the same. But you're stuck with it. You may have gone to speech therapists. You may have tried other programs. You may have played around with my programs and you feel like, I'm stuck. I tried this and I tried that and it didn't work, or it worked for a little while and it stopped working. I said, okay. The truth is you're not stuck, right? This is not something that's permanent. I've talked about this in other webinars and we're going to talk about it here, that you literally are free. You are free, and I'm going to show you how to become free. You literally are free to say whatever you want to say, whenever you want to say it, in the way that you want to say it. You're free to be the kind of person that you're called to be. So let's talk about what you can do to achieve this freedom. So the first thing that we have to talk about is this. It's something that I call DAD, right? And this first D stands for dissatisfied, right? Dissatisfied. That you are, excuse me one second, that you are dissatisfied with your current situation. So first, you have to be dissatisfied with your current situation. Now, why is that important to you? That's important because if you're not dissatisfied with your current situation, then you're not going to do anything about it, right? So you have to be sufficiently dissatisfied with the way things are now. So there are many people out there who are just living with their current speech limitation. They're like, well, it's been this way, and I've tried this, and I've done that, and there's probably nothing I can do about it, so I'm just going to rearrange my life so that I work around stuttering, I work around this problem, this issue, right? It's just kind of who I am. And I want people to accept me for who I am, and I'm going to just accept myself for who I am. But you don't have to, right? So there are people who are not sufficiently dissatisfied with their current situation, so they don't do anything about it. You have to be sufficiently dissatisfied before you actually do something. Now, here's the problem. Many people simply wait until they have to do something about their speech. I've talked to people who have been on my list for years, and they wait until they are about to go to college, or they're about to graduate college, or they have to get a job and they can't pass their interviews, or they're working on their PhD and they have to pass their board exams, or they're a medical doctor and they have to pass their boards, right? And sometimes some of them wait and they say, okay, now I have to work on this because I have invested all this money, or I'm going to lose my job, or I can't get a job, right? So I have to work on my speech now. You don't have to wait until it gets to that point, right? Sakshi and I were talking the other day, and we were talking about making your speech your top priority. It's ubiquitous. It's there with you all the time, right? Right. Your speech is there. Wherever you go, there you are. Wherever you go, there is your speech. It's there with you. So therefore, you can't get away from it. The time is going to pass anyway. The time is going to pass anyway. An hour is going to go by anyway. The only question is, are you doing something within that hour, within that day, that week, that month, that year, to improve yourself, to move yourself forward, to improve your speech? Time's going to go by anyway, right? You might as well be doing something to move yourself forward, because what happens invariably is you look back and you say, man, 6 months later, my speech is still the way it is, or it's worse. Many people, they come in, they check out the programs, they watch a few videos, they get on my list, come to a couple of webinars, don't do anything about it. They wait 6 months, a year goes by, 2 years goes by, 3 years, 4 years. I have people been on my list for 4 years, and they come and they're like, okay, now I'm at a place where I have to do something about my speech, right? I have to do something. The time went by anyway. And in fact, it didn't take 2, 3, 4 years. You can be in a completely different place, speech-wise and confidence-wise, in just a couple of months, right? In a month, in 2 months, in 3 months, you can be in a completely different place speech-wise. So imagine that. So the first thing that has to happen is you have to be sufficiently dissatisfied. So you have to make your speech a priority, all right? Second thing is actions. You have to believe that you have the ability to take actions to change your current situation, right? And this is where hope comes in. We're going to talk about hope in just a few minutes, right? In terms of freedom, right? The freedom to say what you want to say, to be who you want to be. You have to believe that there are actions you can take to change your current situation. If you don't believe you can do anything about it, you can be sufficiently dissatisfied, but you won't do anything because you're like, well, I can't do anything about it. How many of you out there are listening right now who you're dissatisfied with your current speech, but you don't really believe that there's something that can help you fix your speech, something can help you overcome it, something that can help you, more importantly, become actually an excellent speaker, to transform your speech from a liability to an asset. I was talking to one of my clients just 2 days ago, or a few days ago, who lives in the UK, and she said she had to go and she had to do an interview, and then she had to get on video, and the producer or someone there actually said, wow, you're a natural at this. You're a great speaker. She said, Michael, I wish you could have seen me before I started your self-study. She started the self-study. She worked on it, came a long way, then graduated up to the private intensive coaching to take it to the next level. And she said, the producer said, you're a natural at this on video. You're just great. And I told her before we started, people are going to come and tell you you're an excellent speaker, you're a great speaker. I tell my clients that, right? That people are going to come to you and say, wow, that was really good. You're a great speaker. And guess what? If they work hard, it actually does happen. It really does happen. So you have to believe that you can take actions. And some of you out there listening are not real sure if there's anything you can do. Let me just tell you that there is, right? There is something you can do to transform your speech. There is a systematic process that you can plug into each and every day to gradually, right, but definitely change your speech and your thinking, change your psychology and your physiology, right? Physically, how you speak and how you think. There is something you can do. The third thing here has to do with desired outcome or result. Okay, desired outcome or result. So you have to believe, or you have to be able to see a desired outcome. But there's something better out there that I want to achieve, right? There's something better that I want to achieve. So a desired outcome. And if you don't see that, if you don't see the desired outcome, then you don't really have any motivation to take the actions. So therefore, if you're not dissatisfied, then you won't do anything, right? You won't do anything to free yourself. Think of a person that's a slave. If they're okay with where they're at, then they're not going to take any action. If they're not okay with where they're at, but they can't see anything that they can do, then they're not going to take any action. If they're dissatisfied, they see actions that they can take, but they don't think there's anything better out there, then they're not going to take any action. Same thing. So you have to have really all three of these present in order for you to take actions. And that's important in order for you to change your situation. So I just want you to think about that as we move a little forward, because you want to look at your current situation and say, am I sufficiently dissatisfied? If I'm not, then I'm not really going to do anything about it. Do I believe that there are some actions, some steps that I can take to improve my speech and change my life? Well, I'm telling you that, yes, there are, all right? And you can say, well, I'm not really sure, but I just want you to look around, and ask yourself, is there anyone else who speaks the way I do or speaks worse than I do who's changed their speech? And I can guarantee you, I know a whole bunch of people like that, but even if you don't trust me, just go out and do some research. There are many famous people who have. There are many people out in the world who've changed their speech, transformed it from a liability to an asset. So we're going to go a little bit deeper into why you probably want to believe that there are some actions. We're going to go into that in just a few moments, but believe that there are actions that you can take. And then finally, you have to see that there's something better. You have to be able to see yourself as an excellent speaker, even as a genius at speaking. See yourself where people are saying, wow, that was really great. Or, you know what? You're a great communicator. You're an excellent speaker. You're a natural at this. Trust me, that can happen too. All right. So let's continue on with this idea of you feeling and being free to say whatever you want to say. Be who you're meant to be. The first thing that I want you to think about here is this idea of options. Well, let's just say this is the second thing, because the first thing was dead, right? That was just to give you some foundation. Options. So remember this. You're only as free as your options. You're only as free as your options. What I want you to know, if you're going to walk away with something, I want you to know that, in fact, you have many options when you're speaking. Now, here's why this is important. And I'm telling you this straight from the mouths of my clients, straight from the mouths of this is what they say when they get into the program. Just after a couple of weeks, people say, I feel more confident now. Why do they feel more confident? Why do you think when people are going through this program, they just start to feel, now maybe their speech has only improved a little bit, right? They're a few weeks in, their speech has improved a little bit, but they actually feel more confident. Now, I'm not going to be able to read it, but go ahead and type in just to the chat box why you think people start to immediately feel more confident, and I'll look at it in just a few minutes. But let me go ahead and share some of the reasons that they say, just as you're thinking about this, okay? So some of the reasons why people feel more confident is because they now have options, right? They're in a speaking situation, and whereas before they would get stuck and they wouldn't know what to do. What do I do? So maybe they would just push it out, right? They would just push it out, or they would just block. They would just not say anything at all, right? Or they would use a whole different word, or they just would just, say, okay, well, I just can't say that at all, so I'm going to say this over here. And that just takes a lot of energy and a lot of mental acrobatics, trying to figure out different ways. And what they've said is, then I don't sound as intelligent as I actually am because I have to dumb down what I'm saying. So they don't have many options. Once you get into the Pro 90 speech system, be it the self-study, coaching, or whatever it is, you start to see, okay, I have many different ways that I can say this. I also have tools that I can use to say what I want to say. But not only tools and techniques, but I'm actually working on my speech. I'm actually beginning to replace my current way of speaking with a new way. So I have immediate tools that I can use now. And for the long term, I'm creating a new way of speaking. So they feel like they have more options. So remember this, you're only as free as your options. The more options you have, the freer you feel. And the freer you feel, the more relaxed you are, right? The more relaxed you are. So when you have options, you feel free, right? You feel more relaxed, and you feel more confident. You feel more confident, okay? You feel more confident. So when you have options, okay, man, well, I can use this tool if I get stuck. I can do this, I can extend a word, I can model, right? So I have options. I can add a word in front, and I know some people are saying, well, isn't that avoidance? And we'll talk about that. So I have options. So now I feel freer. I don't feel like I'm jammed in, like I'm stuck. And so I'm starting to feel more relaxed now. Okay, so if I do get stuck, listen, I get stuck every day, right? There are times where I get stuck. But now I have tools that either I use subconsciously and naturally, or if I need to consciously use a tool, I know that I have a tool that I can just constantly relax, just use the tool, and you feel more confident because you now know that, guess what? If I get stuck, I know that I can do something about it. I know I can still say exactly what I want to say because I have these tools, I have these options. Does this make sense? So when you understand your options, you feel freer. Now, let me just step to the side and just explain something here, right? This is very, very important. Set realistic expectations. This program, in fact, doesn't matter what program you're going through, you should not be shooting for 100% fluency. From 1 to 10, you're shooting for a 10. Nobody's at a 10, right? Nobody's at a 10 all the time. There are some people that may speak in certain situations at a 10 where their speech sounds flawless, but they're not a 10 all the time in every situation. So you're not shooting for a 10, you're shooting for a 9+, right? Some days you're going to be 10, some days you might be 7. As I tell people, I get stuck all the time, right? And when I say all the time, I don't mean that I'm stuttering all the time. This means that there are times where a word doesn't want to come out. I was at that conference that I was telling you about, and we had to go around the room on a couple of occasions and say things, give our name and say a word or point out someone and ask them a series of questions. And I was just listening to people to see how they did it. And it wasn't really surprising, but then again, it was. You could hear people, and these are people, most of whom probably never struggle with their speech, but they were like, so, well, or and then they were turning the question around, and they were doing all kinds of things, just natural speech, right? So every person in that room had their own way of getting started, extending, and using introductory words and phrases and sounds and transitional words. every person did that in one way. And there's very few people that just boom, 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 like just perfect. Some people did, right? But most people are just speaking very naturally. Most people are a little nervous, right? It's just because it's a normal situation where when you have to speak out in front of everyone, you're going to feel a little anxious. But what I want you to do, I'm going to give this to you as a homework assignment. I want you to think about, but not just think about, I want you to observe how people speak. I give this to my clients, and once they start realizing how other people speak, and they go, oh, well, this person uses so, or they use well, or they use and it's just very natural. So what we're shooting for in the Pro 90D speech system is natural speech. It's not perfect speech, but it's natural speech. And natural speech includes sometimes some filler words or filler sounds, transition and introductory words. And what happens is you strategically use these to naturalize your speech so that your brain stops thinking about speaking, right? So some people say, oh, that's avoidance, it's strategic avoidance, right? You don't use it for the rest of your life. I'll give you an example. Had a young lady, lived in Mexico, bilingual, and she had a problem saying her name. Many of my clients do. So just by adding a little before her name, not a but just a little before her name, she was able to say her name. And what did that do? It helped her create new successful speaking memories of saying her name, because previously she had memories of, I can't say my name, right? Now she created new successful speaking memories, all about the brain. It's all about your brain, right? Now she's layering on new memories, even though she has to add an So now it's taking the anxiety away. It's taking the pressure away. She has options. We're talking about freedom, right? She's feeling freer. She's feeling more relaxed when she has to introduce herself. She's feeling more confident just by adding an Now, yeah, she's doing other things. She's going through the program. She's going through the routine. Every day she's working. But just by doing that one little thing, all of these things were triggered. And guess what happens? Now, she says, in fact, the last time I spoke with her, because she's graduated, she says, I don't always, in fact, usually I don't have to use an I just say my name. Why? Because she's created new memories of saying her name. Strategically, we put a little there, right, so that she could start saying her name immediately, and so that she could create new memories. Remember, it's about, if you keep doing something the same way, you're going to get the same result. So we got to do something different in order to produce new results, right? So adding the changed the way she said her name. And now she doesn't have to use the but if she does, if she feels a little anxious for some reason, she throws the back in there, and she's able to still say her name, right? So that's a specific example, only one example of what you might call strategic avoidance. I don't call it avoidance at all. It's just strategic in natural speech and helping you get from where you are now to where you want to be as quickly as possible, right? Just one little technique. But you don't stay with that one thing. You continue to work on your speech and work on your mindset so that you don't have to rely on techniques and tools all the time. But listen. If you're listening, say, I'm listening. I can hear you. Okay. It's about having options. When you have options, because you have a tool, you have a tool set, so then you feel confident, you feel more relaxed. Okay, I know I can say what I want to say because I have these tools. If I need to use them, I'll pull them out. If I don't need to use them, I won't. Speaking becomes easier, becomes more natural. When it becomes natural, when it becomes easy, your brain pushes it over into your habit center. And once it's there, it's like walking. Right now, as I say in every webinar, I'm not thinking about speaking, right? I'm only thinking about speaking because I'm talking about speaking, but I'm not thinking about how I'm speaking. If I became very self-conscious, I would start stumbling, just like if I started thinking about how I'm walking, or driving. Okay, if I started really thinking about every little movement and action, I'd have an accident. But your brain doesn't want to do that. It wants to conserve its processing power for higher order thinking, for analyzing, for being creative. So it doesn't want to take rote things like routine actions that you take every day. It doesn't want to have to focus on those. Speech is one of those routine actions. It doesn't want to think about it. So your brain really wants speaking to be easy. It really wants it to be natural. It doesn't want to have to think about speaking. But initially, you will have to think about it. You will have to work on it to transform it, right? But then very quickly, right, within a few months, it can start to become automatic and natural. It's all about options, okay? I hope this is helpful. I hope you see the connection in having options and feeling free. So the Pro 90D speech system systematically gives you more options. And so therefore you almost immediately start to feel freer, okay? Now, this is really the last part of this that we're going to talk about, and it has to do with hope. Because if you don't have hope, then in fact, it goes back to Dad, right? The hope is kind of that there's actions I can take, the A, and there's a desired outcome. There's something out there. I can see where I can actually become an excellent speaker, or at least where I can speak smoother and I can feel more confident. So it's that hope that in fact, that can happen. So let's talk about hope, where it comes from, and how to develop hope. A few ways that you can develop hope. If you haven't had a chance to take a look or listen, check out my 21 steps. You can just go search YouTube, Michael Williams 21 steps, and you'll come upon the videos. And this is, I believe, in step 1, where I talk about hope. But let's talk about it a little bit, because when you have hope, that is when you believe that there is something out there better than where you are and what you have right now. When you have hope that something better can happen, that there can be a better condition for you, then you'll be more motivated. You'll be more driven, right? You'll actually believe that you can do something, that things can be different. When people lose their hope, there are a lot of people out there, maybe some of you watching this, you probably haven't completely lost your hope. There are people who lose hope. So then they stop, they give up, they don't do anything. And sometimes people can lose their hope because, I'm just going to give you a couple of reasons, right? Just a couple of reasons why sometimes people lose their hope. Number 1, they failed, right? They've tried stuff before and failed. So that's one reason. So then they lose hope, okay? And let me just give you some specific examples when it comes to speech. They have tried programs before, maybe even tried my program. They have tried speech therapy. They've tried hypnosis. They've tried NLP. They've tried all kinds of stuff. And maybe they really, really did try it. And they failed. So they lost hope. They said, see, this is permanent. So they lost hope. So now they can't see that freedom. Okay. But here's what I want you to know. In every instant, when I talk to people who've tried stuff before, either they tried something that set up unrealistic expectations. Let me give an example. Instantly eliminate your stutter. So do these things and it's instantly gone. Well, it is possible that you can do a few things. I can work with someone and within a very, very short period of time get them speaking smoothly, but it's not going to last, right? That's why you have to have a system that you put in place over time. I've had people watch my videos, listen to my audios, and go completely fluent for days and weeks. Completely fluent. How is that possible? How is that possible? Completely fluent. People have been stuttering severe for decades because they feel inspired and they have hope and they go completely fluent. So it shows you that you are physically and psychologically capable of speaking well, right? So just because they had hope. So what happens then is we have people who've tried things before and they failed, they've tried programs, and when we talk to them, we find out that, okay, they started out with unrealistic expectations. And so when those expectations wasn't met, then they begin to kind of back off or slack off and lose their drive, stop practicing, stop watching. It's number one, unrealistic expectations. Two, the system was flawed, right? Someone said, oh yeah, in 3 days I can help you. There's a lady out there who has a program. I won't mention her name, but I'm mentioning the program. I'm not going to mention the name of the program, but you'll know when you come across it, because people ask me, they come to me and say, I'm thinking about this lady's program. What do you think about it? Well, I'm the wrong person to ask. Why? Because I've had at least 2 people come to me who've gone through the program. One person, it had no impact. The other person, who I worked with for a while, experienced some results for a short period of time, maybe a month, maybe a couple of months, and then they were back to where we started when they left off, back to where we left off. They spent between $6,000 to $8,000, right, for this program. Person says in 3 days, your stuttering is gone. Now, here's the problem with that, and here's why that can kill a person's hope. So if you go out there and you spend hundreds or thousands of dollars because you believe someone said that they can cure or get rid of or eliminate or help you overcome your stuttering or speech issues in a day or 3 days or 4 days or even a few weeks, then you can lose hope when it stops working or when it doesn't work. Here are the problems with those programs. Number one, it's impossible to permanently or long-term rewire or establish new patterns in your brain in a couple of days. It's impossible, right? You can change states instantly and experience fluency for days or even weeks. But guess what? When you get back out there in your daily situations, your daily environment, where there are triggers, right? These triggers in your workplace, triggers in your home, triggers when you go to get coffee, right? These are where, okay, I got to say my name, or okay, I'm here and I'm speaking to someone in authority. These are all triggers. Then your brain looks for patterns. Okay, here we are. We're back in this situation. How are we supposed to behave? Okay, we're supposed to get stuck. And so you go through these programs and you come out on a high, and all of a sudden, a few weeks, days, months later, those triggers are still there. Your brain hasn't had enough time to rewire itself. So boom, those same patterns reemerge. Okay, and then you go, oh, I just got stuck again. Oh my goodness. And then everything goes downhill. So you simply cannot rewire your brain. You cannot retrain your brain in a couple of days. It's impossible. I'm not saying you can't come out fluent in a couple of days, because I can have you come out fluent in a day. It's not going to last. What you have to do is you have to have a systematic approach that addresses both the psychology, because you know that you're going to anticipate sometimes, you're going to tell yourself, I can't do this, or I know I'm going to. We got to change that, right? We got to replace that. And we got to change physically the way you speak, right? Do both of those things together over time, because what you're doing is you're learning a new pattern, a new way of speaking, right? And you're learning a new way of thinking. And learning takes time, right? Doesn't that just make sense? Please, I will get down on my knees, but you won't be able to see me. You have to just think. Does this make sense? Human nature says, yes, I want to get this done as quickly as possible. I'll spend whatever I need to spend to get this done. But just think. If you've been struggling with your speech for years, for decades, it's not going to disappear in days. So what happens is people try those things, they lose hope, and then they don't want to try anything again, or they don't have the money to try anything. What I want you to understand is that you put your hope in something that's solid, right? Something that's true, not in some fantasy, not in some unrealistic expectation. So where does your hope come from, right? I thought I might have 2 things, but really one. So let's take a look. Where does the hope come from? And I'm going to tell you your hope in this instance is going to come from the science, right? Here's what I mean by this. I'll just share with you briefly, and then we'll get ready to wrap it up. So when I started back some 20 odd years ago, working on my speech, I understood that there was something in my subconscious that was telling me I was going to get stuck or stutter. And I would. I felt it, I could sense it, I could hear it. And so I understood also that that wasn't permanent. So I looked at it like a cassette, right? So back then we used audio cassettes. I said, okay, there's a recording on a cassette that says, you're going to stutter, you're going to get stuck, you're going to get stuck over here. And it just kept playing and playing. And I could feel it. I knew it was there. So I said, well, wait a minute, I can record over that. I can create a new recording. It's not going to happen instantly. It's going to take time. How do I create this new recording? Well, for me, it was just affirmations, some visualization. Right? So every day, every morning in the bathroom, I would spend about 5 minutes just doing affirmations, visualizing. And it was this battle that would go on where this recording would keep playing, right? Because it's your comfort zone, right? It's your belief. It's a part of your identity. So when I would say, I'm an excellent speaker, I'm a genius at speaking, I'm great, whatever, I would feel something say, no, you're not. No, you're not. That's stupid. That's not true. I would feel that pushback, that resistance. The brain doesn't want to change much, right? It doesn't want to change. Because if it did, you and I would be changing all the time. So what it wants to do is it wants to keep us in a state of homeostasis, just balance, right where we are, right? So whenever you introduce something new, it kind of resists. And that's where when you're trying to learn something new, it's hard, it's difficult because your brain is actually using more energy. It's physically using more energy until it can create a pattern. So doing these affirmations, finally it began to take. It took me months, finally began to take. But once I believed that, you know what, there is something I can do. There is something I can just re-record. And once I've done that, I'm going to start speaking well. That gave me hope. Just knowing that I could record a new message on my subconscious, on my mental cassette, gave me hope, which allowed me to keep doing it. Otherwise, I would have given up. If I didn't go back to Dad, if I wasn't dissatisfied, if I didn't see that there were actions I could take, affirmations, right, and a desired result, a desired outcome. Okay, if I do that, I can start speaking well. So I kept doing it. What does this have to do with freedom? Everything. If you want to be free, you got to have hope. You got to have hope that there is something I can do. If I just keep doing it, eventually I'm going to be free. The science. What's the science? Well, in my program, Retrain Your Brain, you can retrain your brain to speak well. We go into this in a little bit of detail. And there are other articles and things out there that go into deeper detail. But here's the thing that you want to remember. It's all about your brain. It's all about your brain, right? So we don't even have to talk about subconscious and unconscious and self-confidence. Boil it down to your brain, to neuroscience, to neurobiology, to neurology, right? It's all about your brain. And your brain works the same as my brain. It's the same as her brain, the same as her brain. And once you understand that, it can give you hope. You can learn the same way I can learn. Some people have disabilities. Some people have diseases which interfere with that. Even those people can learn certain things, right? People have brain damage. Well, even those people can learn. Once you understand that it's about learning a new way of thinking. So right now you think in a certain way. You have a certain pattern of thinking, right? It's true. It's absolutely true. We all have patterns of thinking. Well, guess what? Patterns can be replaced with new patterns, okay? Absolutely true. You can replace your current patterns. So it's both a habit and it's a skill, right? A skill in that you can train yourself to think in a certain way. That's a skill. It's something you can learn and you can master. Thinking in a certain kind of way. Speech. Speech is a behavior. It's an activity. It's an action. It's also habit. It's also a skill. Therefore, it doesn't matter if your brain, my brain, is a little different neurobiologically. There are some differences, generally speaking, in the brain of a person who stutters and the brain of one who doesn't, right? There's something there that's missing, or there's a little bit too much of something that's in the brain of a stutter, something that's not functioning quite correctly. That's okay. It doesn't matter. No one's brain is perfect. But because speech is a pattern, it's an activity, it's a behavior, you can change it. You have to work on it where other people don't, right? Here's the good news. Because it is a pattern, it's an activity, there's actions you can take to change it. There's plenty of studies. Everything that I say is verifiable outside of myself. You can go do your research and you'll be able to verify everything that I'm saying, okay? Not just in this field, but in other fields, in every field, okay? That's the beauty of this. So you can do something about it. You can learn a new way of speaking, okay? You can learn a new pattern, a new habit. Why is that important? Because if you, now this is it. Listen, if you believe what I just said, and again, you can go out and verify it on your own, but if you believe what I just said, you will have much more and much greater what? Hope. Because you know, if I follow a process, if I follow a system, if I have a plan, I'm going to be able to speak well. It's just a matter of time and effort. What happens is either you don't believe it, so you don't follow the plan or the process, or you believe it, but because it's hard, you give up and you stop, or you start and you stop. It's about making your speech your number one priority. Your speech is with you. It's going to be with you all the time, so you might as well make it your number one priority. I know people who spend their money and their time and their energy on vacations over their speech, on cell phones, on computers, on TVs, on clothes, over their speech. They allow themselves to get distracted with other things over their speech. Your speech is going to be with you. It's going to impact you in profound ways, right? I'm not saying you got to spend all your money on me or whatever, but devote some time and some effort and some money, some resources to improving your speech. It's an investment in who? It's not an investment in me, it's an investment in you. And I've seen people get a return on that investment almost immediately, right? Like within weeks. One young lady I worked with a couple of years ago went out after several months, $10,000 raise. Got a job, $10,000 just this year, working with a guy, still working with him, went out, got a job paying him $34,000 more than what he was making, just because this brilliant guy couldn't pass the interviews, right? Couldn't pass the interviews. Once got some tools, passed the interview, $34,000 more. He didn't pay anywhere near that for the coaching, all right? I've had people who, guy just wrote to me from India, took your course, went out, just graduated school, got a great job, passed my interview. Couldn't do that before. People passing their PhD board exams. I'm working with some doctors right now. Got to do the board. So this is an investment. It's a small investment. Hope. You want to have hope, believe the science, right? And when you have hope and you keep working on a system, then what happens? You start to feel and become more free. You have more options, you have hope, you keep working on it, and you start to experience this freedom that we're talking about, the freedom to say whatever you want to say. So your freedom that you want to experience is a direct result of the options that you've given yourself. Even just options in, how do I introduce myself? Okay, well, there's only one way. Well, then if that one way doesn't work, then you're not very free. But if I have several different ways that I can introduce myself, well, now I feel more free, and I can probably introduce myself exactly the way that I want. Does this make sense? So it's these options, and then it's this hope that, you know what, there's a better state out there, and if I keep working, I'm going to be able to reach that. So what I want to do now is a couple of things so that we can kind of get out of here on time. I'm going to save some time afterwards for questions. I want you to reflect on one or two things that I may have mentioned or said that you can walk away with, that resonated with you, that you believe can impact your life, okay? So just remember this idea of freedom, because I can remember, I don't know how many years ago now, I was in seminary, And it's like the year after I started seminary, I literally felt there was a point in time that I can remember where something just came to me. I just felt like, wow, I'm free. I'm free to actually do whatever I want to do, say whatever I want to be, whatever. My speech now is my greatest asset. You can make your speech your greatest asset because you have to work on it. Most people don't have to work on it, but your speech can become your greatest asset. You can be free. You just have to have a systematic approach to doing it, and you got to stick with it, and you have to believe that it's going to work. So, got a couple of things that I'm going to share with you. Please stay until the end. Just give me a few more minutes. Don't drop off now, okay? Because I got some very, very special things. And I'm not going to try to sell you anything, but I'm going to just share with you what I've put together and how this can help you. My clients tell me that there are a couple of skills that they learned that help them the most. And I've been seeing this over the past few years. So what I've done is put together a 2-hour boot camp, which will start on a Saturday. In fact, I plan to schedule one for next Saturday. And it'll be for 2 hours. And you'll be with me in a group. And it won't be a webinar. This is not a webinar. This is a training. So you'll have access to video and audio. I'll be able to see you. And I won't have everyone's audio and video on at the same time, but I'll say, okay, why don't you turn on your video and audio, let's practice. I'll be able to break you out into small groups to practice these 1 or 2 skills that can immediately smooth out your speech. So these are skills that I've selected that my clients have told me where you can experience immediate smoothness, right? Immediate impact and immediate effect on your speech. That's why I'm doing a boot camp, because you're going to be able to hit the ground running with these skills. 2 hours is about long enough for us to get into it and to practice it. I've priced this so that almost anyone can afford it. I've never done anything, I don't believe, this low before. But in order to make this work, I have to have enough people sign up for it. I've created things. I remember I had a laser-focused speech coaching, and got a handful of people. Actually, I got some great clients from that, but people didn't really respond to it, no more than they did my other packages. So I eliminated it because it took just as much time, just as much money, just as much effort to put that out as my other programs that cost 2 or 3 times as much. It just wasn't worth it business-wise, right? So when I put things out, now when people ask me, well, no, I don't. It's no longer available, and it's not. When I put things out there that I know in my heart and my mind that's going to help you, and I'm saying, let me make this as affordable as possible, I encourage you to take advantage of it, because if no one takes advantage of it, it goes away. And I know the system works, right? I know the pronouns, and you can talk to people, and you can see this really works long term, not just short term. When I put things out like this, jump on it, right? I want to have at least 1 or 2 of these a month, but I got to have your participation. And when you support things like this, you're not just giving me your money. What you're doing is you're investing in your own speech and in your life. And that's true, right? I'm not just telling you this as some kind of a sales pitch. It's true. The cost of this 2-hour boot camp with me is $97, okay? It's $97. So Myra and Sakshi are going to post the links, and I'm going to email them. Okay, so there's a few links. One is going to be for the boot camp. All right, so there's a few links there. One's going to be for the boot camp. You want to sign up for this boot camp, even if you're in the self-study, because I'm also going to do a little orientation of the self-study. Whether you get into the self-study or not, I'm going to show you how to get the most. Someone says, Michael, how do I get the most from the self-study? Well, we're going to just take 10 minutes or so, 5 or 10 minutes. I'm going to show you how to get the most from the self-study. But more than that, we're going to practice the skill so that you get it down so that when you leave, $97. If no one takes advantage, it's going away. If you take advantage of it, I'll keep doing it, okay? Just going to be honest. It's got to be worth it. This is not a nonprofit. This is a business. This is what I do all the time, every day. I'm not just dipping and dabbling in this. This is what I do. I've coached full time. I help people from around the world, and I love it. But I can't do it for free. Just like when you go to work, people say, I get people writing to me saying, you ought to be ashamed of yourself, and why, and stop emailing me. I didn't add you to my email list, right? I put a big sign at the top. Just scroll down and unsubscribe. I didn't put you on the list, right? That really gets me upset because I'm giving them the option to unsubscribe. If you keep getting emails, it means you're on multiple of my lists, you're in multiple courses. Just unsubscribe. That's all you have to do. I do this as a calling, right? So if you don't like it, if you don't want to hear anymore, unsubscribe. It's just that easy. I don't want to email people that don't want to hear from me, okay? So make sure that you take advantage of this opportunity, because it is an opportunity to work with me personally, and I will get you results if you do the work. The other links that you'll see, if you watch this webinar and you stayed until the end, you're going to get a special discount on the self-study. It's $349. You're going to get it 48 hours for $297, just 48 hours. So make sure if you want to get into the self-study, now's the time to do this. This is the new self-study where I have a fast action daily routine. You just go in, you plug into this routine and just do it every day. And then you watch the videos, listen to all, and you do the routine. It's a practice routine, things for you to listen to, things for you to do every day. And it works. It just works. So there's a discount code there for $297 for 48 hours. That's in the link. I'll email that to you. There's the boot camp for $97. I'll be having that next Saturday. Okay, if everything goes well, next Saturday, just 2 hours, but it'll change your life. Now, here's something else. You're going to have an opportunity when you sign up for that boot camp that if you're not already taking the self-study, you can get the self-study once you sign up for the boot camp for $247. Right? That's $100 off. So it kind of, the boot camp offsets the regular price. Does that make sense? So let's say you want to do the boot camp and then you say, you know what, I want to do the self-study too, because the self-study and the boot camp can go together, right? They can work together. Then you can get the self-study at $247. 97, 247 brings it up to almost $349, but you're getting a boot camp and a self-study. Does this make sense? So click the link for the boot camp. You'll see that offer in there as you go through the process. The next link that you'll see has to do with coaching. Some of you are just going to be ready for coaching. You're watching this. You're already in the self-study. And you're like, Michael, I'm ready to do the coaching and take this to the next level. So there's a link for that. And I'm not sure if I put it in there, but there's the Indian Pilot Project. You have to be a resident of India. You have to be living and working in India now. And so you want to click that link if you want one-on-one coaching. Now, we had 5 spots. We only have 1 left now until the next 8-week cycle. So if you're interested in the Indian Pilot Project, you can't be Indian working someplace else. You got to be living and working in India. Click that link and let us know you're interested. We have literally 1 spot. We had 5, we have 1 left, okay? So go check out the boot camp. There's a little video there. There's one of my clients there who talks about, in a video, who talks about the power of extending and blending. And this boot camp is called the Airflow Linking Boot Camp, right? Airflow linking, it's about airflow, developing and maintaining airflow. We're also going to be talking about inflecting, modulating your voice, that is speaking with a rhythm. All of these things create smooth and natural speech. I'm not talking about sounding strange, smooth and natural speech. That's what we're going for. Okay, it's 11:07. I think I did a fairly good job in explaining all that stuff and really wrapping us up just a little bit after 11. I usually allow for 90 minutes for these things, right? So what I'm going to do now is shift over to my desktop so I can sit down and start to take some of your questions. And for those of you that need to leave, thank you so much for investing this hour, because I know that you could be doing something else, but you took the time out to be with us here. So thank you. If you would like to leave, you can. But if you'd like to hang around and listen to the answers to questions, or if you have questions, put them in the question and answer box. and I'm going to shift over and do that now, okay? So the links are there. If you registered for this webinar immediately after, right, within the next hour, I'm going to email these links out to you. The thing that I want you to focus on, though, would be like a couple of things. One would be the boot camp. If you want to work on your speech and you want to do it as quickly as possible, this is the best way. Do the boot camp. It's $97. Do the boot camp. There's an offer there for you to get into the self-study at $247. If you don't want to do any of that and you just want to get into the self-study, there's a 48-hour offer for $297. If you're already doing that, or you just want to go right into the coaching, there's a link for that. If you live in India, you work in India, and you want one-on-one coaching with myself and Sakshi, then click that link. Okay? All right. Give me just a moment to shift over, and I want to answer your questions.